Aloha, how's it? I hope you had a beautiful weekend. As you can see, the weather here is absolutely gorgeous. I spent a little time out surfing. The waves actually weren't crowded because everybody was at South Shore, so I was hitting up the North Shore. It's kind of an island thing. And we're plugging away on our Weeby Vanning van conversion project. We're just about 30 days into the project of actually working on the van, and we're just a couple weeks away where I'm probably going to try doing a live stream from the van in a really cool location. So that is on the docket. I'm pretty excited about that. Hopefully, we can start touring around Oahu and doing live streams in really cool places. And I can kind of show you the ropes here, and hopefully, you'll come. It would be awesome. I love meeting people that I have met online, on LinkedIn, other places on social, in real life. So if you do make it to the island, hit me up. Okay, now it's time for Mondays with Mindy, which is a weekly show at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, where I talk about all things LinkedIn pipeline, promo, and profiles, what I call the three P's of LinkedIn. So if you have questions about LinkedIn that you want answered, leave them below this post and I'll answer them either after the show or on a future episode of Mondays with Mindy. Sometimes they do require a little more than a quick little snippet of a response. But let's get into today's topic, which I am so excited about. I was stoked about this topic. So, we are talking about three proven LinkedIn connection messages that actually lead to conversations. Okay. People want to talk with you after getting this connection invitation. So, if you're like many of us on LinkedIn, you are not here to waste time. You want to use LinkedIn to actually build your business, grow your network, get connected with the right people, and have conversations. It's just that building a strategic LinkedIn profile takes so much time, and there really are no shortcuts, unfortunately. So, automation was always an option for those who had a higher risk tolerance and who didn't mind hiring something to create some really complex sequences for them. But using this type of automation has always been a bit risky because LinkedIn is on the hunt for them and it often leads to restricted LinkedIn accounts. So if you're not in that risky category wanting to use automation, I'm probably the person for you. Since LinkedIn recently started limiting the number of connections you can send in 1 week, as far as we can tell, it's right around 100. You can no longer use automation's favorite spray and pray approach and sending your connection invitations. You'd be wasting those connection invitations and also quickly getting labeled as a spammer by the recipients. Okay, so what actually happens if you send a poorly written connection message? Okay, what happens? One thing that could happen, the recipient might just ignore the message. This is actually not so bad, especially if you do end up withdrawing the connection invitation before they see it. So if they just ignore it, not as bad. The recipient could actually report that they don't know you. That's bad, which means it's a black mark against your LinkedIn profile. And you'll notice LinkedIn starts putting in little restrictions and making you jump through more hoops to send connection invitations. You also may end up getting connected, but then what happens after you're connected? Like, what happens next? If you sent something kind of uh, what's the likelihood that the conversation is actually ever going to get started? Or the person will see the connection message for as long as you're connected. And is that what you want? Do you want them to see, oh, that connection message was just horrible? Like, you wish you could just bury it, but it is what it is, right? And I've also seen people that actually have used these messages and they're not happy with them and they have this really big network or sometimes not as big as they hope, and it's filled up with people who are never going to do business with you, and I see that as pretty useless and almost can harm you in a way because it gives you this inflated sense of my network is so big, I should be able to generate business from LinkedIn. Okay. But not to worry because today we're going to get to the bottom of the LinkedIn connection messages and figure out how to send messages that actually resonate with the person on the other end. So that connection message sets the tone for your professional communication moving forward with this person. It's worth paying just a little attention to what you say here. Okay, so introductions. Aloha for those who don't know me. If you're watching the replay, hi, I'm watching you. I see you. My name is Mindy Rosser. I'm the founder of Mindy Rosser Marketing, and I have a signature pipeline building online program for B2B business leaders and professionals who want to use LinkedIn for business. I help leaders and experts like you rapidly fill your pipeline, scale your influence on LinkedIn so you can grow your business. In this live, we are going to talk about why not sending thoughtful LinkedIn connection messages is stunting the growth of your LinkedIn network and also leading to a lot of missed opportunities, but how you can kickstart new business relationships if you have a well crafted LinkedIn connection message. Are you ready? Let's do this. I'm really pumped about this one. You can tell. Okay, so one common mistake that I see people do all the time is it's not actually related to the text of the connection invitation message. It's actually related to their targeting. So, what do I mean by targeting? Okay, think about it. Who are you actually sending this connection message to? If you're not being thoughtful about identifying the right people from the get go, it doesn't matter how good your connection message is if they're not the right person for the message. So you have to match the person to the message that you're sending. If they don't match, it's not going to work. So, far too often, when I'm helping my students troubleshoot, it's not just the connection message that needs a bit of work. Rather, it's actually matching what they're sending to the person they're reaching out to. Okay. For example, one of my clients had heard that having a podcast and inviting people to be on that podcast was the best way to get people to accept his connection message. He's all excited about setting up the podcast, the tech behind the scenes, his microphone, his lighting, all the branding for the show. I kind of hated to like break it to him, but I asked him, okay, who is your target audience? Who are you trying to reach on LinkedIn to get on your podcast? How are you trying to get these people? He said, come to find out, they're C suite executives at large, stuffy corporations with lots of red tape. Okay, so that's not at all a fit for being on a podcast. So there was definitely a mismatch of connection invitation to podcast and what he was trying to get them to connect. Okay. So he'd have benefited from knowing his target audience a bit more, especially since they're a new market for him, and understanding what they will or will not respond to. So knowing a little bit more about your target audience before you start sending connections is a very good idea. Always match your connection invitation to the person you are sending to. Okay. So remember, your targeting matters more than your connection message. This seems like common sense to a lot of us, but this is critical. Don't try to copy your colleague's magical connection invitation if you don't have a similar audience. Okay. All right. So your connection invitation is all about connecting with people, with real people, not just avatars. So there is someone always on the other end of that connection invitation. And most people don't employ bots to review their LinkedIn connections, at least that I'm aware of. Maybe there are. I advocate for every single LinkedIn interaction that people pay attention to every single LinkedIn connection message that they send. It's really, really important. Why? Because you never know what door it might open or what opportunities you could completely miss because your connection message felt automated, it felt spammy, it felt irrelevant, something was off with the message and it just did not resonate. So, if you're like many of my students and clients who are using LinkedIn for their businesses, you value every single connection invitation that you send. Okay, I'm gonna fix this dreadlock that is driving me nuts over here. I'm actually just gonna pull them out. Okay, so you want to do it right, but you need your efforts to be somewhat scalable. There is a way to craft connection invitations that feel good to the recipient without you having to go back to the drawing board every single time trying to think up something to write. So, this is something really, really important that I think about every week when I'm starting a new week, when I'm doing my weekly review. It's that this week I have 100 opportunities on LinkedIn to open a door for my business, for my career, for a project, to move my driving purpose forward? And how are you going to use them? I think that's key. I don't know about you, but I look at each week as an opportunity to meet new people, collaborate, and share ideas. And I'm always looking for synergy. Okay, so these 100 opportunities are really important to me and I value them. And because I value my connection invitations, if you receive one from me, know that I care and I specifically chose to send that message to you. And because I approach LinkedIn with this mindset, the results I get from investing in LinkedIn have actually become the main driver of my sales pipeline. Because I am not there to sell anyone, I am there to be a resource, to help where I can, to connect with good people. So I challenge you today to approach LinkedIn with this mindset. Even though we are going to talk about tactics in just a moment, it's really the mindset behind the tactics that is the magic. Okay, my pep talk is done. Let's hop into the how to send a good connection invitation message. Okay, this is the fun part. So, if you were curious, you have 300 characters available to you to send a LinkedIn connection message. You can't put any links in here, no graphics, it is just text. Even if you're not a great copywriter, you are a human who does business, right? Okay, you write emails, you send messages to colleagues, you comment on other people's posts. With all that writing experience, you have all the skills you need to draft a LinkedIn connection message. You don't have to be an expert, you don't have to hire a LinkedIn person to write it for you. We talked about targeting earlier in this talk, and it's something I'll get into in a bit more depth on an upcoming show. So stay tuned. I will talk about targeting. That's like the secret sauce I really enjoy. But it is really important here in a sense. Remember, we always want to match our connection invitation message to the person we are sending to. The connection requests we're going to look at today are going to be a bit more on the prospecting side of the spectrum as we want to get into conversations. We are going into this with a prospecting mindset, even if they don't buy from us or they don't become a referral partner. It's really about getting a conversation started that leads to potentially doing business together. Now, let's get into my 3 connection invitations that I absolutely love and work like gangbusters. Number one, which I kind of referenced before, is inviting people to be on a podcast. If you are wondering what is working right now on LinkedIn, I'm going to share a big secret with you. For a lot of people in the marketing sales consultant space, inviting their potential prospects to be interviewed on a podcast is working really, really well. Why is that? Podcasts are a bit trendy right now. So people know that if they're the guest on your podcast, it will lead to some marketing of themselves, their business. There's that instant cross promotion. So they already know instantly what's in it for them just by you saying, I want you to be a guest on my podcast. The key here is that your podcast focused and your pitch to them needs to feel authentic. If they're second guessing, why are you inviting them to be on your show? You've already lost them. You can't really explain it. They have to be able to instantly get it in that connection message. And I'm going to show you an example of a podcast invitation that worked really well when we did this campaign. So basically, it says, I'm talking with CMOs and thought leaders and think you may be interested in my new podcast research project that proves brands with genuine empathy in their messaging are winning now. Let's chat. So you see, there's that automatic, oh, yeah, I must be using empathy in my messaging. And so the person is going through this process in their head, automatically connecting with why you reached out to them. They're also getting their ego stroked a bit because you're asking them to chat. So obviously, you think that they're doing well with their company messaging. So this connection message was highly targeted and it led to about a half dozen calls being booked per month as a result of the outreach. And we only sent around less than 100 connection invitations, usually between 80 to 100 per month. So that's a pretty good conversion rate for really cold outreach. So, if you're up for doing a podcast, this is a great option to use to start having initial conversations with your potential prospects. One word of caution here, don't send too many of these, especially if your target audience loves to talk about themselves. I had one of my clients pause any new outreach for 3 months because he got backed up with so many podcasts because this technique works so well. He had too many conversations and couldn't keep up production. So be thoughtful, pace yourself if you're going to use this approach and you're seeing a very high, connection acceptance rate. Make sure not to overwhelm yourself. Okay, good problem to have though, right? All right, so number two, we are talking about contributing their insights. We want to ask them if they can share their insights with you. Okay, what do you do if you don't want to start a podcast or if you know your potential prospects wouldn't want to be a guest? Some people are just not open to being on a podcast. They don't want that public face. They don't feel comfortable talking on video or with audio. So, if your audience is pretty savvy in their area of expertise, you can still ask them to contribute, but to share their expertise a bit more discreetly. So, asking them to contribute to a podcast, a book, maybe a number of my clients and students are either writing a book, they're creating blogs, they're publishing regularly, and they're looking to speak with experts in the field who are open to contributing. This type of connection invitation works really well for authors who are publishing a book or digital course creators or specialists who are writing on specific topics. If you're a subject matter expert, this is probably a really good connection invitation for you because you can get answers to the questions you're asking yourself as you're creating content. And it's a way for people to give to you and for you also to reciprocate and helping them out with contributing to their article, to their blog, to their book, sharing your insights, and looking for synergy as always. So here's an example of asking for a book contribution. So this is a good connection invitation that has worked very well. So I'm a leadership cultivator and author in the cannabis business. I'm working on a book for cannabis leaders. Can you do a quick Zoom interview with me for my book? First of all, he's got a great target market. Cannabis leaders have not been pitched to on LinkedIn incessantly, like a number of other target audiences. Next, he's writing on a topic that is immediately meaningful to them because cannabis leadership in general is a completely new thing. They are all looking for resources on how to lead a cannabis business better because it's different than every other standard business out there. And is it a wonder that this connection message converts like crazy? More than a dozen calls per month for sending right around 100 to 120 connection invitations total during that time. Great connection invitation. And it works so well for this client. And he's very happy with the conversations he's having and the quality and the targeting that we have done for him. Okay. So that's the second one. Ask for their insights. Ask them to contribute to a blog, an article, something where they can share without having to put their face or do something that makes them feel uncomfortable. All right. Number three, the final one for today is let's explore synergy. Okay. So you don't have to have a podcast or a book. What do you do when you can't send people to something like that? Okay, who might be great prospects or you want to do business in some way with these people and you just don't have something legitimate to point people to and ask for their contribution? I like the let's explore synergy one because it's less of an ask as long as the person on the other end is a bit more, I would say, open ended with their calendar and their schedule. So this one won't work well if you're trying to target corporations or large organizations, but it can be just the opener for those with an entrepreneurial background or an attitude that's like open to, oh, yeah, synergy. That sounds great. I'd be happy to hop on a call with you. So people that are a little bit more free flowing might respond well to this type of connection invitation because they're always looking for new opportunity. So here's an example from reaching out to someone interesting who commented on a post. Jane, I noticed you just commented on that article by John Smith about what's driving us all crazy about business growth. I'd agree with, insert your point here, up for a quick chat sometime. I think there may be some synergy with our businesses. Okay. So that's an example of a connection invitation that can work really well with more of the free flowing, entrepreneurial, scrappy business owner types. This is definitely not meant to be a copy and paste template, the Explore Synergy one. It's just to give you an idea of what you could say and more about the mindset of showing you've done your homework before reaching out. So if the person is actually active on LinkedIn it's a lot easier to find an opening to connect. This is one approach I use whenever I come across someone who seems like wicked smart and like a good referral partner for me. It also works just as well for prospects. So use it to be human when you are trying to reach out in a way that feels human, that feels authentic. I know that word is overused, but we don't want to see and talk to a bot. We don't want to connect with a bot. We like it when somebody says, "Hey, I was paying attention. I noticed this. I think there may be some synergy with our businesses. I'd like to send you business, or maybe we can work together and collaborate on this project that seems to be of interest to you as well as me." Think about how you like being reached out to. So here's a tip that I share with everybody. All right. We get lots of horrible connection invitations. Most of the time, we just delete those. I recommend just ignoring and deleting those. Don't worry about those. But what you should do moving forward is save good connection invitations that you receive and repurpose them to use for yourself. So what I do is I take screenshots and I put them in a swipe file because I've received some really clever messages that, stroked my ego or talked about something that I'm passionate about. And I thought, that was so clever. Of course, I'm going to accept and connect. You seem like an interesting person. And then I save their messages in that swipe file. Really helpful if you get stumped and you're like, I don't know what to say to this person. So we've talked all about those three connection invitations. Let's recap. So, number one is inviting people to a podcast. Number two, ask them to contribute insights to an article, blog, or book that you're working on. And number three is exploring synergy. Okay, so now that you figured out, okay, I know what to send, I think I can kind of pick one of these connection invitations to start with. What's a good connection acceptance rate to expect? Like, how many people are actually going to accept your connection? How do you know if you're doing well? I'll keep it really short here. Aim for 25 to 35% connection acceptance rate when you're reaching out to prospects and prospective clients. Anything above that, you are winning. You are doing fantastic. Don't change it. A lot of people just get tired of sending the same thing. If it's working, keep going with that approach. If you're consistently hitting around 10% of your connections being accepted or single digits, you need to either number one, find a more responsive target audience, or number two, you need to change up your message approach. Okay. So those are my tips around numbers and what to do there. So there you have it. We covered a lot in today's Mondays with Mindy. And if you are ready to start testing these connection invitations, the one thing I want to remind you to do before you do that is to get your LinkedIn profile dialed in. And I created a resource. I am putting it down below. You can see where it is. Check out my 3-part video mini training called How to Reboot your LinkedIn profile to grow your online business. It's jam packed with examples, with templates, what to do with your headline, your about section, and make those experience sections shine. So check it out. It's free, instant access. You can watch it on demand. And next week, I will be talking about how to know if you're actually ready to use LinkedIn for your business. It's going to be more of a mindset focus, a little less tactical, and it's going to be a really juicy one. So I hope to see you there. In the meantime, my inbox is open if you want to message me or have questions about what we covered today. And I will see you next Monday. Have a good week.